You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, General Hospital fans. It's Belynda from Soap Dirt. So I have been doing a lot of thinking about the casting leak that I reported earlier this week about 3 males coming to town. And then I was kind of mentally tying that back to some other chatter I heard in August. And so today I would like to explore why I think it could be Ted King coming back to General Hospital, presumably as Lorenzo Alcazar. That could be one of the big cast changes coming soon. I know that would boost ratings. I mean, Ted King's got a pile of soap opera fans that will swoon over him, me included. So let's talk about it. Hey, if you haven't, please click subscribe. And now let's dig in. If you do not remember Lorenzo Alcazar, he was on the scene from 2003 to 2007. He's played by Silver Fox Ted King, who soap fans most recently saw on Bold and the Beautiful as Jack Finnegan, the biological and simultaneously adoptive father of another key character. And he's a bit of a scandalous cheater over on B&B. He slept with and fathered a child by notorious she-villain Sheila Carter. You may have heard that name even if you don't watch Bold or YR, because she was a terrorist basically on both of the CBS soaps. So Lorenzo, when he came to Port Charles back in 2003, was the flip side of the coin of his wicked twin, Luis Alcazar. Luis was an arms dealer, a drug dealer, much worse than his twin. He blew up Alexis Davis's sister in a warehouse explosion. He also took out hits on Sonny and Jax and kidnapped Felicia and her kids. And Alexis wound up shoving Luis off a balcony in late 2002 in revenge for him killing her sister. Then, about 6 months later, his twin Lorenzo came to Port Charles. Now, to say he was a good twin is like, I don't know, saying Mussolini was better than Hitler. They were both bad. Luis was worse. So he was a former drug lord turned legit, sort of, who was actually really bad the whole time. He had some back and forth with Sonny and was around when Rick Lansing kidnapped Carly, and then Lorenzo re-kidnapped her when Rick let her go. That was while she was pregnant with Morgan, and he fell for her, and she started getting the feels for him too. He later got involved with Lois Cirillo, but he couldn't stop thinking about Carly, so that fizzled out. And he eventually married Carly, but then she had a mental breakdown and they broke up. And his last romance on General Hospital was with Skye Quartermaine, who got pregnant and gave birth to their daughter, but she didn't want him around because of the danger of his lifestyle. So she set him up to be killed by Jason Morgan. Just to mention, I have seen on soap social media, some people thought that the SEC contact that gave Michael the info that Nina reported Carly and Drew, I don't know if you remember, his face wasn't shown. He was holding a phone in his hand and you could kind of see the back of his hair. There was a tiny little bit of silver in there. Some people think that was Ted King. I don't think it was. Ted King's hair is a lot grayer all over. I think they kept the guy's back turned so they didn't have to pay him as much or didn't have to give him an actual credit because his face wasn't shown. I think if your face isn't actually shown, it may be cheaper. I can't remember about the day player rates and extras rate. Maybe they just didn't want to add one more face to GH, which has a cast of thousands. So I don't think that was probably Ted King. Just my opinion. So now on to the 3 reasons I think Ted King might actually be coming back as presumably Lorenzo Alcazar. So recently I did a standalone video on the casting leak about 3 characters over age 40 coming back. I'll drop it in at the end of this. At the end of the video, you can click on the right to watch it, or you can see recent videos or go to the GH playlist. But I won't give all the details because I did a whole video. So one of these is said to have been gone more than 10 years, and that definitely fits Ted King as Lorenzo Alcazar. And the actor that's been gone more than 10 years, they said they would likely be playing their old character. They couldn't imagine them playing a new one. And they mentioned that he was more of a brand name and would cost a little more. And that also fits Ted King. So the second thing, and this is the thing I was thinking about back in August, I reported on it back then, and I think I even did a video on it, but it's worth mentioning again in light of this casting leak. Ted King said at an August Bold and the Beautiful fan event that he had been talking to someone who likes to hire people in parking lots. This is a reference to Frank Valentini, who met Wes Ramsey, Laura Wright's real-life boyfriend, and then hired him to play Peter August. They met in a parking lot. Somebody said of Whole Foods, I can't remember if that's true, or just in the parking lot at GH because he used to drop her off at work. Either way, that whole Peter August thing began in a parking lot. So yeah, that's a big clue too. That's why a lot of people, if you ever heard them refer to Peter as parking lot Peter, that's why, and then later Popsicle Peter when he was frozen for just a minute. That's pretty funny. We could combine him, Popsicle Parking Lot Peter. Anyway, so the first actor mentioned in the leak, they said, was already shooting as of late November. That, well, could be Ted King. I mean, it takes a bit from initial conversation to figuring out how to make a return fit into the canvas to negotiating the length of the run, whether it's contract or recurring, and the pay rate. So yeah, he could have been talking to him in August, and then it took until November to get him on set and shooting, which means we would see whoever this is towards the end of the year. So the leaker did say that one of the people would be more expensive and they weren't sure how GH would pay for it. Then they followed up with the leak with more information and said that that's part of why Roger Howarth's contract as Austin wasn't renewed, because they were using that money to pay for these three actors, one of which is a bigger name. So all that fits with Ted King, who, you know, he's worked consistently over the years, so they would definitely have to pay him more money. He, of course, was on B&B. He's not contract really or recurring. He's very occasional. And so I guess technically that's recurring. And he was also in the hit movie Oppenheimer most recently, just of interest. So the third thing is bringing back Alcazar could definitely make sense from a storyline perspective, because Lorenzo is tied to several front burner storyline people. Ned, Tracy, other Quartermains, the Cassadines, Lois Cirillo, Sonny, just among others. There's a lot of people that he was interacting with and involved with back in the day. So the casting leak and the hint that Ted King dropped at the fan event are definitely enough to have me hoping he is the long gone character we're getting back. And before you say it, yes, I know he's supposedly dead, but there's some things to say about that. We never actually saw him get shot. If you recall, back in 2007, Sky had told Sonny, I think, and Jason what time that he would be home to the place where she was living with their baby with him. And he kind of said Jason's name. He just said Morgan. And then all you heard were 2 gunshots and then a thud. So the implication was that Jason shot him and he died. But if there's not a corpse shown on a soap, and sometimes even if there is, that means they might be back alive eventually. And he had survived, I think, a gunshot to the head, several gunshots, one of which I believe was to the head. He survived during his run on those 4 years on General Hospital. So I do think also there are plenty of places to drop Lorenzo back into the storyline. He could be the big, mysterious Pawtuck hillbilly big boss that was mentioned, someone that maybe Cyrus answers to, the person that Mason met out back of General Hospital that day, but we never saw and they've never circled back to. So Lorenzo also once worked with Ned, and he once owned like a third of ELQ stock, and Ned's about to need an ally against Drew and Michael. So that could be interesting. Lorenzo could be the big pikeman boss, and maybe the 2 guys in town now are like his right-hand man, the guy with the British accent, and a flunky, the guy who went to see Sonny. You never know. Alcazar could have even changed his name to Pikeman. One big argument in favor of this is that Alcazar was an arms dealer, and so that's likely the business he would stay in after his faked death. So he might have not died that night, changed his name, and started doing shady government deals. So maybe also he could be the guy with deep pockets trying to buy Windermere. Alcazar had a lot of interaction with Stefan Cassadine and Nicholas back in the day. Back then, the Cassadines owed Lorenzo a lot of money, and Stefan even tried to choke Lorenzo to death to avoid repaying the debt. So I could see how Alcazar might covet a piece of Cassadine property. And he could still be the buyer of Windermere and either the pikeman boss or the Pawtuck boss, assuming that the guy we saw at Kelly's on Friday wasn't the big boss and that Cyrus isn't the big boss. So we'll see. Those two might just be underbosses. So also, in terms of storyline, Alcazar was crazy about Carly, so he might be an interesting temptation for her. And then there's also the fact that he and Sonny were rivals, which could be fun. He could be a romantic interest for Ava. He died, supposedly, before she came to town because she came in 2013, so 6 years after he left. So they've never met. But he's the kind of bad man that she would definitely be hot for. And she needs a new love interest now that Austin caught 2 in the chest. And if we want to go completely crazy, if he's coming back, he would be fun as Dex Heller's biological father. Just throwing a wild card thing out of there, just while I'm thinking about possibilities for him, because Lorenzo did find out after the fact that he had a grown son, Diego Alcazar, and Diego wound up dead. So yeah, he could use another son out of nowhere. Anyway, that's my feelings and suspicions on a possible Ted King comeback, hopefully as Lorenzo Alcazar. If it happens, and of course, that's a big if, I absolutely love Ted King. And I love Alcazar. I will say when he's on B&B recently, he had grown this giant 70s like porn stash kind of thing that I really don't like. So I do hope if he's back as Alcazar, he'll have a beard to go with it to balance it out or be clean shaven. I don't want that stash over in Port Charles. That's just my 2 cents on the stash. I didn't care for it. All right. That's everything I have. If you haven't clicked subscribe, please do that so you don't miss any of our General Hospital updates, and definitely come back soon. Tell me what you think. Would you like to have Ted King back? Would you like Lorenzo Alcazar back in Port Charles? And if he is back, what would you like to see him doing? Let me know what you guys think. Come back soon. I'm here talking GH with you 7 days a week. As always, this is Belynda from Soap Dirt.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.